Where do the Serbs really come from? For centuries, this has been one of the Balkans' biggest mysteries. Some say Serbs came from the ancient Slavs who first arrived in the region. Others believe their roots go back even further, to the first tribes that lived in the Balkans thousands of years ago. Now, modern DNA testing is giving us real answers, and what scientists have discovered is truly amazing. So stay with me until the end, because we're about to uncover the hidden truths of Serbian ancestry. But before we dive in, let me ask you, do you think Serbs are purely Slavic in origin? Tell me in the comments. Long before anyone called themselves Serbian, this land was home to ancient tribes. The Thracians, Illyrians, and Dacians left their mark here. Their pottery, tools, and bones still lie beneath the earth, telling stories of lives lived thousands of years ago. One amazing discovery came from caves along the Danube River. Inside, scientists found human remains dating back over 7,000 years. When they studied these bones, they realized they belonged to some of Europe's first farmers. These early settlers grew crops, raised animals, and built communities in what we now call Serbia. But it wasn't just farmers. Warrior cultures also lived here. Ancient graves reveal weapons buried with their owners. Bronze swords, spearheads, and shields show that these people weren't just peaceful villagers, but defenders of their land. The Balkans were like a crossroads of the ancient world. To the south lay Greece, with its great cities. To the east were other ancient lands. To the west, the coast opened the way to Italy and the Mediterranean Sea. Every empire that rose in the region, from the Romans to the Byzantines, left its mark. Scientists have found evidence of many different cultures. Pottery styles change from one valley to another. Burial traditions differ between mountains and plains. The land that would become Serbia wasn't home to just one people, but many. This raises an important question. When the Serbs finally appear in historical records centuries later, how much of this older world survived in them? Were the ancient farmers and warriors replaced by newcomers, or did their bloodlines continue quietly into the present? Most history books tell a familiar story. Around the 6th and 7th centuries AD, large groups of Slavic tribes moved into the Balkans. They came from the north and east, traveling down rivers and through forests until they reached the lands of today's Serbia. According to tradition, the Serbs were part of this movement. They were described as Slavic people who settled among the mountains and rivers of the central Balkans. Their language, customs, and social structures all connected them to the broader Slavic world. But there's a puzzle. Written sources from the time are unclear. Byzantine writers describe the Slavs arriving in large numbers, but they don't tell us whether these were invasions, peaceful migrations, or something slower and more gradual. Did the Slavs overwhelm the native populations, or were they a smaller group that blended in with the people already living there? Archaeology gives us a clue. When researchers look at settlements from the 6th and 7th centuries, they don't see a complete break with the past. They see continuity. Pottery styles change gradually. Burial practices show both old and new traditions. This raises an even deeper question. If the Serbs were Slavs, how much of their ancestry actually came from those northern migrants? And how much came from the people who had lived in the Balkans for thousands of years before them? For centuries, historians debated this. Some insisted the Serbs were purely Slavic in origin, a people who arrived fresh on the scene. Others argued that Serbs must carry the blood of the earlier peoples who came before. The truth remained hidden in the bones of the dead. Everything changed when scientists began extracting DNA from ancient skeletons. Graves that had been silent for thousands of years suddenly had a story to tell, and what those stories revealed was shocking. In burial sites across Serbia, researchers took DNA from Bronze Age and Iron Age bones. They compared this genetic code to that of modern Serbs living today. What they found was continuity. Some family lines had survived, unbroken, for over 3,000 years. For example, DNA passed down from mothers to children showed clear links between women buried in Roman-era Serbia and women living in Serbian villages today. Not just similar, but in some cases identical. The chain of ancestry was unbroken. On the father's side, the story was more mixed. Many genetic markers common in modern Serbs trace back to Slavic groups that arrived around the 6th century, but others go much deeper into the prehistoric Balkans. This suggests a blending, newcomers arriving, but mixing with locals whose roots reached back thousands of years. One study revealed that up to half of Serbian genetic markers trace directly to early Balkan farmers and herders. The other half reflects Slavic ancestry, with smaller influences from Celts, Romans, and even nomadic peoples from the steppes. The shocking part is how strong the local continuity is. For centuries, people assumed that Slavic migration had replaced the older populations. But DNA tells a different story. Replacement never fully happened. Instead, the Serbs are both Slavic and ancient Balkan. Two heritages fused into one people. DNA doesn't just reveal the past of one people. It also shows how groups are connected to their neighbors. And here is where things get even more surprising. When scientists compared Serbian DNA to that of nearby nations, a pattern emerged. Serbs are genetically close to other South Slavs, Croats, Bosniaks, Montenegrins, and Bulgarians. That makes sense, but the details are fascinating. For example, Serbs and Croats share a strong Slavic foundation, but Serbs also carry slightly more markers linked to ancient Balkan populations. This suggests that while both peoples share Slavic roots, the Serbian gene pool may have preserved more of the deeper local ancestry. Looking east, comparisons with Bulgarians reveal another twist. Bulgarians show genetic influence from Turkic and steppe peoples that once swept across the region. Serbs, on the other hand, carry less of this. Their genetic story is more tightly tied to Slavic and Balkan roots. Even more surprising are the connections with Albanians and Romanians. While these groups speak very different languages, DNA reveals overlaps in ancient Balkan ancestry. In fact, certain family lines in Albanians and Serbs trace back to the same prehistoric tribes. This suggests that long before modern identities formed, their ancestors once lived side by side. What does this mean? It means that the people of the Balkans, though divided by language, religion, and history, are deeply connected at the genetic level. They share ancient roots that no border or empire could erase. The science shows us something powerful. Identity is not about purity or isolation. It's about layers. Every migration added a new strand to the Serbian genetic story. Every invasion left behind more than ruins. It left traces in the blood of the people. And that's the shocking truth. The Serbs are not just descendants of Slavs, nor only heirs of the earlier peoples. They are both, a living blend of all who came before. The Balkans were far from a backwater. They were part of one of the greatest empires the world has ever seen. The Romans arrived over 2,000 years ago. They built fortresses along the Danube, roads that cut through mountains, and towns that served as centers of trade and culture. Everywhere they went, they left marks that still exist today. But their influence wasn't just in stone and brick. It seeped into the people themselves. Excavations in places like ancient Belgrade reveal graves that tell a fascinating story. Roman-era skeletons show a surprising variety of origins. Some came from Italy, others from the Mediterranean coast, even North Africa. The DNA of these settlers mixed with local populations, creating an early genetic mix that was already complex. What's most remarkable is how these Roman family lines survived. Centuries later, when the Slavs arrived, they didn't completely erase the people who had been here. Instead, some families remained, quietly blending with newcomers. Modern genetic studies suggest that certain mother-to-child lineages in today's Serbian population can be traced back to these Roman-era inhabitants. In other words, women who lived in Roman fortresses and villas may still have living descendants walking the streets of Belgrade today. As the Western Roman Empire collapsed, the Eastern Roman Empire, better known as Byzantium, held its grip over the region. Byzantine influence reshaped cities, religions, and social structures. Churches rose where pagan temples once stood. Christian rituals became central to daily life. Art, architecture, and even language absorbed Byzantine influences. But DNA shows that this cultural dominance didn't erase ancestry. Even in the Byzantine period, there was continuity. Certain male and female family lines survived, forming an unbroken bridge between the ancient Balkans and the medieval Slavic world. This means that modern Serbs carry a living memory of the Roman and Byzantine past, not just in buildings or culture, but in their very blood. The story doesn't stop with the Romans and Byzantines. Long before the Slavs, before even the Romans, the Balkans were touched by another people, the Celts. Known for their sweeping migrations across Europe, the Celts arrived in the Balkans around 300 to 400 BC. Scientists have uncovered Celtic treasures across Serbia, bronze jewelry, decorated swords, and even coins with Celtic writing. In the Central Plains, graves show warriors buried with their weapons in a distinct Celtic style. Some of these artifacts are remarkably similar to items found hundreds of miles to the west, suggesting a vast network of Celtic culture stretching across Europe. What makes this discovery fascinating is that the Celts were never a permanent ruling force in Serbia. Unlike the Romans, they didn't build lasting cities or impose empires. Instead, they were passing through, moving in and out, blending with local populations. Yet, their genetic and cultural mark survived. Fast forward many centuries. The Balkans became part of another vast empire, the Ottoman Empire. For over 400 years, the Ottomans ruled Serbia, shaping politics, religion, and society. Cities flourished as trade centers. Mosques and bridges dotted the landscape. Life under Ottoman rule was complex, with periods of stability, conflict, and cultural mixing. Yet, when we look at DNA, the genetic impact of the Ottomans is surprisingly modest. Modern studies suggest that while there is some Middle Eastern influence, it's limited and region-specific. Unlike the Romans or Slavs, the Ottomans didn't settle in large numbers to replace the local population. Their influence was more cultural and administrative than genetic. Still, the Ottoman period left subtle fingerprints. Certain regions show a slightly higher presence of genes associated with Anatolian and Middle Eastern populations. These tiny traces are like historical bookmarks, reminders of a time when the Balkans were part of a vast, multicultural empire. These influences are small, but they're real, and they add another layer to the complex story of Serbian ancestry. The genetic legacy of the Ottoman period also highlights the resilience of local populations. Despite invasions, wars, and political shifts, the backbone of Serbian ancestry endured. DNA tells us that identity is not only about rulers or borders, it's about continuity, survival, and the blending of people over centuries. When we consider all these layers together, Roman, Celtic, Slavic, and Ottoman, a picture emerges. The Serbs are not simply the product of one migration or one empire. They are the product of thousands of years of movement, conquest, settlement, and blending. Every new arrival left a mark, but the people who were already here didn't vanish. Instead, they merged, adapted, and survived. It's a story that challenges simple narratives. The Serbs are not just Slavic, not just Balkan or European. They are all of these things and more. They are living proof that identity is layered, ancient, and often surprising. The soil of Serbia holds its secrets well. But through careful archaeology and modern science, the hidden threads of ancestry are being revealed. Threads that connect the past to the present, linking modern Serbs to every chapter of their rich, complex history. If you've enjoyed this journey through the hidden layers of Serbian DNA, let us know in the comments. Have you ever taken a DNA test and discovered unexpected ancestry? Or maybe you've always wondered about the origins of your family's roots in the Balkans. Share your stories. We'd love to hear them. And don't forget, if you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe for more content, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Thanks for watching.